All right, so starting point. What was the issue we were running into last time? We were doing a lot of trial and error stuff.
It had something to do with the apps.
So what we want to clarify is the difference between an app and a controller. All right, so because we're playing this game of app versus controller as it relates to scope. That seems to be the situation, right? And there has to be a fundamental misunderstanding that we're having here. So let's take a look at this. So this is an NG app. And then we want to talk about payment gateway options. I assume everybody looked into that to some level. All right, let's see what they say here about IndexApp. Using this directive to auto-bootstrap an AngularJS application. Okay, so this might actually, that very first sentence might be where our issue is. When we let it auto-bootstrap, that means that we probably need to play by the right rules from that point forward, otherwise things start getting wonky. Okay, so the NGApp directive designates the root element of the application as typically placed near the root element of the page. Okay, body or HTML. Fine. All right, so at this point, we've always had a single, so some things that have popped in my mind here is the difference between an app and a page. One of the things Angular is kind of made for, or one of its, I guess, I don't know, interesting points is that it's supposed to benefit you in terms of creating single page applications, which is sort of what we've been doing, right? We've been kind of hiding and showing different parts of a page. But if we would like to have it go to another page, we'd like to maintain a scope between those pages if it makes sense, if we can do that. So having said that, let's see if they give some designation here. A few things to keep in mind when using NGApp. Only one AngularJS application can be auto-bootstrapped per HTML document. Okay, fine. So that's a page. That's what we're calling a page, a single HTML document. The first NGApp found in the document will be used to define the root element to auto-bootstrap as an application. To run multiple applications in an HTML document, you must manually bootstrap them using angular.bootstrap instead. AngularJS applications cannot be nested within each other. All right, so don't put an NG app inside of another NG app. Bad things happen. Don't cross the streams. Speaking of which, have you seen the preview for the new Ghostbusters movie? It looks stupid.
I mean, I would have predicted that.
I wouldn't have.
Really? You thought it was going to be pretty good?
I thought it was going to at least look good.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of times things look legit and then suck, right?
Yeah.
But this does not even look like it. They have women Ghostbusters to start with, which could be okay, but I think they're all comedians, and they act like it. It's bad. You know how like the original Ghostbusters, those guys were mostly comedians, but they acted serious, but there was some humor. This is like all humor, and there might be a few parts where they're serious, but it's not believable. You know, like in the previews, the one lady, the one who's the big fat chick.
Fat Amy?
Fat Amy, is that her name?
That's the character name, I think. I don't know.
She's the actress who is known for being the big woman. I think she's lost a bunch of weight though, but whatever. She's in Mike and Molly, that show.
Okay.
But in any case, you know, she has this line where she's like, you know, I know we're all into paranormal research. It's like completely not believable. Like you start laughing. It's terrible. It's really bad. All right, hold on, we're watching it. I gotta pause this. Maybe that's it. That's it. She's funny in other movies. Most of them are funny in other movies, but like that movie doesn't have the. They just need to have the original cast, including the dead guy. But people won't even notice. Didn't you see the movie Weekend at Bernie's? You ever saw that?
I've never seen it, but I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, I mean the whole movie was about a guy who was already dead. They're just dragging him around. Bernie was a huge hit on the beach and stuff. The guy was dead. I hate you people. Especially you, old Alex. What are you debugging stuff back there?
You can't connect to data and maybe my username and password.
Do you see
Guest is in here.
who?
Guest is in here.
You don't want to be on guest. Do you see Eden? EDEN?
No. Other room we have.
You can't get on FalconNet.
Yeah, I tried my account, user ID and password, and make it thinking.
All right, let's keep looking at this. All right, so only one Angular application can be auto bootstrap or HTML. The first NG app found it, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Can't have one inside of the other. Do not use a directive that uses transclusion on the same element as NGApp. That includes directives as ngIf, ngInclude, and ngView. All right, so doing this misplaces the root element of the app. All right, let's see. You can specify an AngularJS module to be used as the root module for the application. This module will be loaded into the injector when the application is bootstrapped. It should contain the module, or it should contain the application code needed and have dependencies on modules that will contain the code. In the example below, the NGApp directive will not be placed in the HTML element. Then the document would be compiled. The app controller would not be instantiated, and the A plus B would not be resolved to 3. So NGApp is the easiest and most common way to bootstrap an application. So in this particular case, since we do not have a NGApp, it should not go through. Or was it just not showing us the rest of the code? It says if NGApp directive were not placed on the HTML, they're just not showing us the HTML. Okay, so that's NGApp. So then we need to look at IndexController. Attaches a controller class to the view. This is a key aspect of how Angular supports the principles behind the model view controller design pattern. Fine. All right, so that just defines it. Note that you can also attach controllers to DOM by declaring it in the route definition via route service. Using template itself. Name of a constructor function registered with the current controller provider, or an expression that the current scope evaluates to a constructor function. Okay. All right, so then what were we trying to do? See, all these give single page examples. So this is our index. So index.html, snowman home. All right, so this is where we had the ng app, but didn't we see here a few minutes ago that it says the most common places to put it was body or HTML tags. All right, so here's the body. We have IndexApp is IndexApp. So should we think of, since all the examples talk about an app being on a single page, should we throw out this idea that you can have apps bridge multiple pages? So here's our login form. Because right now on our index page, let's bring that up.
I mean, couldn't we just have an app for users, providers, and then admins?
No, we can. I think we decided last time we know how to fix it.
Yeah.
The bigger question is why does it work a certain way? Because it's important to understand it so that we don't go down a wrong path later, making an assumption that's a false assumption. All right, so let's open a file. And these guys are in Dropbox, right? Project Snowman, index. All right, so once we log in here, so what was it? Just user1 or user1@user.com? And then ABC123. Okay. Yeah, we left it in a bad state. All right, so this takes us to home.html. So let's look at this. So right off the bat, here's our login redirect controller. That's this guy that just automatically redirects us, right? So we have a controller on a body tag. It seems like we could put this higher up. Like, shouldn't that work? So we have not redefined the app that goes in here. Although was that what broke this last time? Okay, so what I just said was we should assume that every page, because when we read that, it said every page can have at most one app auto bootstrapped. And you can, if you're going to have more than one app, which they basically said would not be common, you just can't have them nested inside of each other. We were trying to use the idea of an app as being a governing thing across our entire web application. But the reality is it doesn't seem like that's a thing. So we would need to auto bootstrap something on this page. So probably something like this. We can put it up in the HTML. We actually could put it on the body tag, I think, because we're not using whatever they called it, the transclusive, like ngifs, those things. But we'll put this up here. We'll call this guy home app. All right, so this angular.module, maybe this is where the issue comes in, not about how we use the thing, but how do we grab because by saying angular.module, let's see, is that on that same page? Does that allow us to grab like the scope? is a global place for creating, registering, retrieving Angular modules. All modules, Angular core, or third parties that should be available to an application must be registered using this mechanism. Okay. But auto bootstrapping should do that for us. Which means that what we were trying to do, well, see, now I'm back to where I was before. Let's go back here to index. We called this guy IndexApp. So if we just say this one app governs our entire application, at least for right now, just from an understanding perspective, then inside home, we would not have another app. At the very least, we wouldn't have to have another app, because where we see this is in the login redirect controller. We're saying this app is part of IndexApp. So we're grabbing IndexApp, which uses Firebase. That gives us that variable. So we're asking Angular to give us a module that should already exist. And this module was bootstrapped on that first page. We should have hit first, right? But it does say it should be one per page for auto bootstrapping. But does it overwrite what was already there? So for instance, if we are on this page, where's home? Our assumption was, oh, we came to this page from the index page, we must still be under the umbrella of that original app. But if I just say IndexApp here, is that okay to use the same module name in two places? Because our goal is we don't want to leave. We want to have an overarching environment across the entire application. Module is a collection of services, directives, controllers, filters, and configuration information. Okay. So this creates a brand new module. This registers a new service. Blocks mymodule.config. Okay, yeah, so this is NGApp is used to simplify all of this. So all this stuff should be created for us. All right, so the name of the thing is the name of the module we want to create or retrieve. So in this case, the idea here in login redirect is we want to retrieve IndexApp module. We want to bring him back. He should have already been created. The next thing this requires, specified the new module is being created. If unspecified, then the module is being retrieved for further configuration. Okay, so if we don't give it anything there, then we must be retrieving it. Okay. So that's this case. We're not giving it that second parameter. Do we give it on the index controller? Well, we're retrieving what used to be there. Well, this last part is optional though. Well, this is optional as well. And this guy is a function, and this guy is a it seems like we are giving it something here, which means that if we are inside of like part of you wants to do the whole thing as a single page, because that seems to be the way you have to do it. But then I want to know how you can do it in multiple pages and still keep a global environment. So this deals with our individual controllers, and a controller so here, I don't think we'd want to auto bootstrap this again. The only time we ever use IndexApp is to bootstrap our app initially. So if we're here on the home page, it should already be bootstrapped. That's just punchline. So it should already exist as a module, which means that if I'm on, let's see, I don't think it's on the index page, is it? Index. Yeah, this guy doesn't look for that already logged in thing. So the login redirect controller doesn't show up for the first time until home. And we haven't auto bootstrapped anything new. So here at the body level, we're doing a login redirect. We should actually be able to do this at the HTML level if we want to, since we don't need another application. So right off the bat, if we come to this page, we're going to hit our login redirect controller. Login redirect controller is going to grab our index app, but I'm going to leave that second parameter off. I think that might be the issue. From what we just read, when you don't give it that second parameter, it defaults to retrieve the module as opposed to creating a new module. So we'll retrieve the module called IndexApp. And then we're going to attach a controller to this called login redirect, where we ask the question about the, whether we're authorized, blah, blah, blah. Okay, back to home. Then we have our content controller. Well, these are scripts that are built in there. Okay, that's fine. Where do we connect that? Yeah, here's content controller right here. We have our, oh, I know why we put that other thing down there. It's because our script doesn't come until after that. It should actually still work, but we'll put it at the body level. That way the script is already read in, already processed. So we'll log into redirect on the body. Then if we are still living here, if we're still on this page, we'll hit the content controller, which should be content controller JS, which is this guy right here, which is also IndexApp. Again, put it into retrieve mode, so we get that module called IndexApp. And then we'll attach our content controller to that. And then we have all of our clicky stuff. Let's see what this does. So this is using one overarching app for everything called IndexApp. And this works. We can always change that to a new name. But allows that app to span multiple pages where the controllers keep regrabbing that module. Seems to be what what makes some sense, I think. All right, let's log out. All right, actually, interestingly, oh, that's interesting. All right, user1@user.com, and then ABC123. Sign in. Okay, so right off the bat, this welcome stuff is not, it's not processing these things, and things are laid on top of each other. That's weird. Let's look at page source on this. All right, so user email and role. Was that maybe that's a scope problem? What do we expect to happen there? So user email and role should be they're part of our content controller. Yeah, there's a role. And user email oh, here's email. Is it just email or user email? User email and role. Well, that's, we have something called email here, but where did user email come from?
Was that straight from, that might have been from Firebase.
It looks like it should be part of our content controller. Were we getting a role here? No, we didn't get either of those. Okay, well that should be fine. And what about an index controller? Do we have user email over here? We don't. And this is where it's first being created, our app. Then we should be retrieving it. And it shouldn't necessarily matter because we know role has something in it. Let's just change this to, I'll just change it to null for right now. It's funny, it's just like writing these like on top of each other. Here's a div/div. So that's welcome, logout, home. And so this should be 3 buttons all on the same line. Okay, yeah, that's that. So this is that first div. Second div, if page mode is equal to normal, and page mode came from, well, in theory, came from our content controller, page mode, it's currently equal to normal. Then what do? we show this stuff, which should have an iframe for user.html, provider.html, or admin.html, depending on which of these things we're looking at, if we're in page mode normal. But since role doesn't have a value, is that the issue, or multiple things showing up here? It really seems like we can't bridge across multiple pages. So with that in mind, if I go here, well, here, let me try something real quick first. Well, I'm not going to be able to test that yet. So is app a synonym for page? Like, is this idea of having multiple pages belonging to the same app not a real, that's like a misinterpretation of what an app means? Since Angular is built for single page applications, for them an app is one page.
I don't know if that's specifically why, but that would maybe make sense. But from what we read earlier, it seemed like that wasn't necessarily the case. But
Let's see, Angular multiple
NGApp.
Well, that's within a page.
What you want, right?
Well, and I actually want a single NG app across multiple pages.
Do that. Single NGApp used on multiple pages?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do right now. Like that index app, have that, the scope from that app govern multiple HTML documents.
See why you can't. It's just a bunch of JavaScript, right?
Yeah, so here's two apps. Here's a, so this app governs this. Yeah, this is the opposite of what I want. NG app spanning multiple pages. Okay, can only have one NG app per page. Fine. You can only associate a single module with a single HTML element. Fine. Yeah, see, that seems to be that, just that sentence, which is the same as the sentence we had in the main documentation page, indicates that if they're stressing that you can only have one NG app per page that's auto bootstrapped, for me to want one NG app across multiple pages seems to be going in the opposite direction of what people might want. You know, if it might be desirable to have two apps on a single page, it seems like that's going in a direction that says, well, what if I want to have one app that governs 3 pages? So 1/3 of an app per page. That's moving in the wrong direction, which seems like that's not the Angular way of doing this. Multiple modules missing. Angular sample app. Okay, here, let's look at this. Is Angular just for single page applications? Yeah. So even though a lot of these people are saying it's kind of ridiculous that they're saying is it just for single page applications, that seems to support what I'm saying about the NG app thing. If you want multiple things to share the same scope, you should put it in a single page application because that's what Angular is kind of made for. Yes, Angular can do a whole bunch of other magic tricks. Great. So with that in mind, it seems like us having a home HTML and all these other things is actually not the Angular way of doing it. The Angular way of doing it would have everything inside of our normal index page here, which would say, let's see how that would work. So right now our index page is automatically showing the login. We wanted to toggle between logged in and like showing the login or showing something completely different, depending on what they're doing. All right, so let's see. So we're going to call this, well, I guess we can leave it as IndexApp. And here's our login form. But let's update the app names since we're doing it. So we're going to call this Project Snowman. Should we call the app Snowman? Snowman app. That's going to be the name of our one app because we're going to do this as a single page application. Okay. All right, so then this first div needs to have a controller, but it should be a ngIf. We want to conditionally show this login. Should be an if else, right? So we were doing that kind of thing at home. So this is ngIf, so something that looks kind of like this. So I'm going to steal that. We'll bring it over into our index page. All right, we're going to call this guy is authenticated is equal to false. I don't think we need to have some single quotes around it because it's not a string. Then we'll do this whole form stuff. All right, then we'll have another div after this. So I'm gonna steal a good part of this. Just give us an H1 for right now. Okay. So we're only going to show this div here if they're not authenticated, which means we need to generate an isAuthenticated variable. This is our IndexController. So we'll probably leave that as IndexController. All right, so we probably need to have this div inside of a div because we want to handle this portion of the app. Actually, there's no reason why we can't have a controller here. So I don't think so. So here's our snowman app. This entire thing is going to be governed. I don't think we want to do it at the body level. I think that's going to break stuff. Well, for right now, it should be fine. So we're going to have everything under this IndexController. The IndexController should set a variable for isAuthenticated. So we're going to put that inside of IndexController. We're going to steal some guts from our login controller. Just steal this for I'll just steal all of it for a second. All right, so we already have that ref, so we don't need it there. All right, so now we're going to just say var well, actually, let's just do it this way. If they're not updated, so we will, what did I say we would call it? We said we would call it isAuthenticated. So I need a variable called isAuthenticated here. We'll start that off as false. So by default, they are not authenticated. And then if authdated, then we'll say isAuthenticated is equal to true. And then we'll leave that extra, the login function there that will get used by our actual. This is an ability. We're not actually calling this. This is just a function that belongs to the scope that our website can use. So this is setting up, so we have three variables here. We have ref, we have auth data, and we have isAuthenticated. IsAuthenticated starts off as false and then potentially flips to true, depending on the state of auth data. This is another variable called login that just happens to be a function. It's an untapped resource until we actually call upon it. All right, so now back here in index, we should now be able to ask the question, if is authenticated is false. If they're not authenticated, let's go ahead and give them the opportunity to log in. Otherwise, let's just show that they're currently authenticated.
Doesn't that have to be scoped out? Is authenticated?
It shouldn't have to be. Actually, I think it will need to be. You're right, because I need to expose it. Yeah, you're right. Like that. All right. So ref and auth data are private variables that live inside of this controller. Scope is authenticated, starts off at false. If auth data actually has something in it, then we'll flip it to true, because that means they are authenticated. That should do all the staging for these variables, which should then help index.html right here in this directive to say only show the contents of this div if is authenticated is equal to false. This guy should say only show the contents of this div if is authenticated is equal to true.
Do we need to change the app, or did you do that already?
I changed the Snowman app here.
Did you change it in?
Let's find out. Oh, I didn't. Thank you. I was testing you. So far, you're passing. How was volleyball, by the way?
On the beach?
Yeah. Good? You were in Deerfield? I probably was like right nearby you like a bunch of times. We drove all over that area.
You didn't go play volleyball with him? You didn't come? I didn't know you.
I didn't play golf. I went to Florida in March and did not play golf
Why not?
because we were shopping for condos.
Did you find one?
We found a couple. Yeah, I think we're leaning towards Doral area. So that's kind of what the Boca of Miami. Is that
I don't know.
you know anything about Doral?
No.
Don't you live down there?
For a couple of years.
The golf course.
Well, I mean that's so it'll be the Trump presidential golf course, Doral's Blue Monster, but the city, it's called Doral. Very Venezuelan. Very Venezuelan. Like all the Venezuelan money is in Doral. So it's like really posh, richy, and nobody speaks English. We went to this place for lunch.
Good food.
I like it. My wife, she doesn't like interesting stuff. We went to this Venezuelan restaurant for lunch yesterday, and she ordered chicken fingers. Pollo fritos or something.
Yeah.
when they took our, is that right? I say it right?
Yeah.
Chicken fingers.
Chicken fried, yeah, fried chicken.
See, you speak Spanish.
I took like 6 years of Spanish.
So I got that right. Pollo fritos.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nailed it. So yeah, and they actually come up and they don't even try to take your order in English. And this is in the United States. The place that they spoke the least English during my entire trip was in the United States, in the Miami area. Any island you go to, I mean, we were in St. Martin, which is a combination of French and Danish. Everybody spoke English. 100% of them. I don't even think they spoke French. They just gave up. Their whole economy is based on tourism. Like, all right, we're just giving up the French. We're going straight with. We're going just straight to English. So we found a couple places, but that's kind of where we're leaning towards, is in that area. We don't want to deal with the riffraff in Deerfield or. West Palm Beach wasn't bad, but pretty crowded. Lots of traffic. We didn't like, and we thought we were gonna like it, is Port St Lucie. We hated it. Yeah, it was like, I don't know, it was like really felt like run down. I expected it to be like super nice and kind of golf central. It really, have you been up there?
Yeah.
And do you like that area? Good volleyball?
Isn't that further inland?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to be on the beach for
Yeah,
volleyball.
yeah.
All right. So what's special about beach volleyball versus regular volleyball? Is it just the diving and stuff?
It's completely different. You're talking about like indoor versus sand?
I don't know what I'm talking about.
I think
Like you say, it has to be on the beach.
that's what he means.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, so like we have like a volleyball thing here on campus that has sand.
okay, the sand's really bad, but yeah.
Is that it? Would it be the same thing otherwise?
Yeah.
Like if it was properly sanded, would that and beach volleyball be equivalent-ish?
Ish.
Okay,
I mean, being at the beach makes it different. That's what makes it special.
I gotcha.
But it would at least be the same game.
See, I'm always afraid to do beach volleyball too much in inland communities because I might get mistaken by a hunter. You know what I'm saying, Yenter? I don't need to get shot while playing volleyball. So what I saw, we were talking about the movies I saw earlier. I saw the DiCaprio movie with the bear attack, Revenant.
That's so good.
Did you see the movie?
Yeah.
See, I thought it was kind of difficult to sit through the movie. Like it seemed like it drug out too long.
Yeah.
But it definitely felt like an Oscar-winning movie. Like, not that I thought it was that great. It just felt like it was purposely made to win Oscars. Like, that kind of drama-y type thing. But the bear attack was legit. I thought that seemed pretty realistic. If I was seeing a person mauled by a bear, that's exactly how it would go down. What do you think, old Alex? What do you know about bear attacks? You got a lot of those in Vietnam? Do you have bears in Vietnam? Yeah, see, bears are carnivores. They
Oh, they're omnivores.
really? I've never seen a bear eat rice.
Berries?
Rice.
Yeah, but they eat berries.
I've never. Oh, they eat berries, but not rice.
Is that the only My mistake.
How many
That's the
berries
only
do you have in
place
Vietnam?
I don't know. I've been pretty much we kill everything, every animal.
Kill everything.
To get meat, so literally, you don't see anything. So get killed.
What's this? What
Okay.
Is it good?
It's a whole story, but one of my friends somehow hooked up with a girl on Craigslist.
So should I pause?
Yes.
We're back. Yeah, we covered some good stuff there. All right, so we have our index controller. Where are we at? Here, I'm going to close several of these things just so they're not in our way. All right, so our main index page, which is going to govern our entire app, starts off with this ngIf thing. So it's in the Snowman app, governed by our our index controller. If is authenticated as false, we'll show the login form. Otherwise, we'll just say authenticated. That's all that guy should do right now. Index controller. It's talking about a thing called Snowman app, requires Firebase. Here we have a single controller for it right now called IndexController. Here's our ref, here's our auth data, here's our is authenticated scope. We start off at false, possibly flip it to true. That should be all that matters there. Okay, so now let's go. All right, so right now this says authenticated, so it doesn't show the login form, although the background stuff is still there, and that's from the class.
Well, you never went to the login stuff. So you never sent it to there.
No, we started off there. The right stuff showed up, it just still has the background.
Is that a bad thing though? We can have a universal background then, right?
Yeah, that's true. You want to just leave it for now?
Yeah.
I mean, the reason it still has the background is because of this right here. The class is login form. All right. So with that in mind, Here, I just want to try something here real quick. I just want to see if that's the case, because now we'll move it inside the NG. Okay, is that guy still popping up? Is that from higher up? Yeah, I don't think that's from the login form.
Does it have to do with CSS?
Oh, it's probably this. Snowman home, meta. Let's see, where's our CSS? Oh, yeah, this just governs the body tag. All right, yeah. To make this easy, we will just leave that as a universal background. We can always change that later. We only have to change it in one place. Okay, so now we have that thing flipping on, flipping off. So now, instead of saying we're authenticated, well, actually let's force ourselves to log out. So quickly, let me give myself a logout button. It's going to be on home.html. Here's our logout button with ng click. Put this out here. And then we'll keep this inside of IndexController just for right now. So I just need to give myself the logout function. Go into IndexController. There's login. We'll put logout right above it. Oop. We don't need this guy. Just need that. So we'll refresh this, still authenticated. I'll click log out, then we'll refresh it again. It should show me the login form now. Okay, good. So that toggle is now working. All right, this is starting to show some promise now. And I also think simplifying the way things are working. Okay, so let's go ahead and get us logged back in. user@user.com. And then ABC123, sign in. This is going to take us to other page. It's still screwed up. That's fine. So I'll come back here. We're authenticated now, so we'll leave the log out button there for now, just so we have a way of getting it. Let's see. Do we have the ability to JavaScript refresh page? Is that like a window thing? Location.reload. Is that a thing? It says everybody supports it. So that means if I hit, well, let's refresh this. If I hit log out here, it should actually reload the page and take me to the login thing. Okay, that seemed to be legit. That's what we wanted. Okay, which then means if we go to our login, it gives us a scope test thing. Here's our auth with password. This was us redirecting, but we don't actually need to do that. All we need to do is do a location reload, right? We'll stay on the same page. So we're not going to leave this page. We'll just stay put and reload the page, but now we're authenticated. Okay, so let's prove that that's working. I'm maybe starting to understand why Angular wants you to do single page applications. It seems to actually be pretty convenient. Yeah. User1 at user.com, abc123. Row. Did I not refresh it? Or did I not save it? Here's login on IndexController. Yeah, I don't think I refreshed it. Yeah, there we go. So funny. Oh, there it is. It didn't say authenticated. It finally popped in. All right. Now we're making some progress. Okay, so now we should be able to determine what our role is, right? We've already written that code. We just need to bring it into a single place. So this is our content controller. Let's see. So this will be, I'm just going to steal this line here. But we don't need the Firebase thing anymore. That's interesting. Okay. So we'll go ahead and re-grab that for this controller. And this will be our content controller, which will govern that internal div. So we're going to switch over to that guy. Okay. That way we can kind of start keeping our code separated. Off, log in, log out. And actually, it would probably be easiest for us to just keep these functions all in this one place to have us have this a single scope. And then our index controller here. We already have our auth data. So then we should be able to just do this. Content controller, we'll go ahead and get our role. And then we'll start getting the profile information. All right, I'm just going to steal all that. So this is what we'll do inside of here. If we're authenticated, we'll go ahead and off of our ref. It's actually weird. Okay. We'll get the role. So there's our role. Then we'll get our profile info. Where did I actually use profile? Doesn't look like I'm using that anywhere yet. I think we were probably in the middle of trying to do something, so we take it out for right now.
The profile?
Yeah.
I think that was for pre-filling the form.
All right. Well, when we stumble upon needing it again, now that we're doing this, and I think in a better way, we'll put it back. Okay. So if we're authenticated, this is inside of our IndexController. Then we'll go ahead and set authenticated to true. Then we'll go ahead and grab the person's role. Grab the person's email that's logged in. All right. And then service requests. So here's all the service requests for the current user ID. I'm not sure if this is necessarily what we want yet, but we'll leave it there for right now. All right, so now what we can do is we can go into home.html. What were we trying to do with the normal thing there? We already have our logout button. Let's go ahead and put this H1 thing in here. And this was called user email. We'll put this inside of index.html. All right, so it's user email and that's role. We're calculating both of those inside of our IndexController. And actually we can do, no, this is where we should do it. All right, user email, role. We won't worry about service requests for the moment. So now we should get the role and the email address of the person who's logged in. If I refresh this. It's weird. I would expect something to pop in there. What's the three dot things here?
Right click and then inspect. And go to the console tab.
Did you not change the app?
Oh, Firebase array is not defined because we need to bring it into the app thing. That's like a separate requirement, right? think we have it in our content controller. Yep. Okay, user1 at user.com, and there's user. Okay. Good enough. So now let's go ahead and bring back our things we were doing from home here. So this was whether or not we were a user, a provider, or an admin for our role. So we can do this in, we were doing it inside of iframes to bring in those other screens, but I think maybe that's not going to be in our best interest right now. All right, so I'm going to steal. And this was bringing in from what user? That was user controller. So I think we could steal that. Well, we could make that look better later. So now we need to do a ngF. We'll put this in here for right now. Okay. We don't need a new IndexApp, but we could have this guy be a new controller to control the stuff associated with a user. So let's go and indent all this stuff. All right, so, but this should only show up if role is equal to user. All right, so if role is equal to user, then we're going to govern this by our user controller, show all the service names. That's going to be connected to our service name thing there. Where's our user controller? All right, so this is where we'll re-grab our application here. I think we're onto something now. So it's our user controller. We're going to make this guy part of the same app, but we're just re-grabbing that. So this is multiple controllers within a single app on a single page. So here's our app, Snowman app. This will retrieve it from our module. Then we're going to add this user controller to that app. This guy probably actually already has access to the ref, but we'll put it in here. We already have our auth data. We don't need let me try something here. It's fine. 2 is fine. All right, so we want to just show the scope value, proving that we've gotten into the right place here. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to I don't need ref either. We don't need any of that. Service requests, that was the same thing we had over here. So these are actually the service requests for that user. Okay. All right, so now that's what user controller will be. He's still part of the Snowman app. So we'll grab that module, we'll add our user controller to that module. We're going to create a single new value here called a value. Start off at -1, changes it to 2 if auth data, which auth data we should inherit from our parenting scope. So inside of index.html, this new div we put in here right here, if role is equal to user, should create this user controller inside of the more global index controller that's up here. Index controller has defined ref, it's defined auth data, it's defined all of those variables that we should innately have access to. So ref auth data is authenticated. All those things should be things we have access to inside of user controller because user controller is used inside of that scope. That's my belief. So I think we want to print out the value inside of index.html. So we'll just do that inside of that's this guy right here. So just for a moment, well, actually that should be all okay. Let's just do this. So that should be a 2. All right, so service name, that should be inside of user controller. All right, so this is a form, tests, okay, so that's going to be linked to something called service name. That's in create. Where is create? Oh no, it's in submit. Yeah, here's service request. Here's service name. Okay. Good enough. We don't need logout because we already wrote that, and we wrote it better than that. Okay. So this creates a new one. Here's pending requests. There's service request data, which I think we have in here. Service request data, we do. So that should show stuff. Incomplete jobs. Same thing, we're just filtering differently. Okay. So if this is working the way I think it should work, we should see a 2 printed out right here. And all this stuff is going to happen after that logout.
You save.
I think so. Why doesn't he have a role anymore? Kind of interesting. That's an index. No, that's an index.html. Actually, it makes sense this stuff isn't showing up because the role is gone. We don't have a role is equal to user, so all this stuff shouldn't be showing up. So it's correctly not showing that stuff. The question is when do we lose our role? Role is an index. This is where we should have been getting the role.
But does it update in the user? I mean, when you switch to the user controller, there's no role in there.
We're not. We haven't even used the user controller yet because we're failing that if because the role isn't there. So this should be, let's see, $ scope dot role is equal to undefined, which should be good enough for us to see. Okay, it's undefined there. Question is why? Just want to see something here. Is it related to that? So we actually don't need it there right now. That guy is going to come in over here. App controller. Right, let's try logging out then back in. User1 at user.com. ABC123. Still says undefined. The thing is authenticated is true already. We wouldn't be showing the welcome if it wasn't true. And is authenticated doesn't get set to true until right here, which means that when we're trying to get the role for auth data UID, scope.uid is equal to auth data.uid. Just make sure we have that value. Then we'll go and check Firebase. Go in here. So now we should have the user ID of that person who's authorized. Actually, we can move that inside of this if. We know we're getting in here because that's when is authenticated is getting set to true. Oh, I wonder if we need to move this. I have a theory here, but let's try this like this first. So we should see hit the user ID out there now. Okay, that's the user ID. Yeah. Although the user email showed up, which kind of breaks my theory there.
Email? Oh.
Yeah, so it just didn't make a difference. So we're hitting the role of that child on this auth data, getting the value. So let's go and look at Firebase. Do I have Firebase open here somewhere? All right, so this is the child role. And here is our, what's the person? So we're already here. 4F7D. 4F7D, role should be user. Right here. So we're saying start with the reference, firebaseio.com, go to child role, get the child from that, authData.uid. Here's role, here's the child off that with the UID, and get his value, which should be user. Yeah, it's just blank. So we can console that. What was the JavaScript console? Console log. All right. So let's, it says on value. Lowercase. Just want to prove that I'm getting inside of that, because this is a callback. So on a value being available, go in here. Let's just see if we get there first. We're there. Now let's print out the data.
Data.val.
Who?
Data.val.
It is funny actually. The okay, there's user. Oh, is it? It's still not showing up there. So then we're setting scope.role equal to that. We've seen that that works. So why is scope.role?
Is scroll up. It's on my We're
I mean, we know this is all getting hit.
go to user controller.
We're not ever hitting user controller.
Or,
Let's actually just for peace of mind here. Let's go back to when it was working, which is, let's just take out this div. Okay, and then refresh this. Let's log out. User1 at user.com. 1, 2, 3. Sign in. Okay, so we are inside of this NGF because we wouldn't be getting this welcome if we weren't. We have a thing called user email, that's showing up. We have a thing called UID, that's showing up. We have a thing called role, which is not showing up. So just so before I forget, let's put this stuff back. Make sure it's still. And then we'll go into our user, this guy right here. So user controller is not even involved. You know, where we're losing our value, user controller is not a thing. We know data.val is the value. We're putting it into scope.role. Just for no good reason whatsoever. Okay, well, at least that didn't work. That would have been troubling. Okay. Index controller, and we know we are because we just printed it to the console and the right value showed up. So something about this binding here is what's not working, which then means this binding isn't working. We called it role, even to the
JavaScript where it sets the value.
and we had a console in here a second ago that printed out the right value.
Wonder if it's the apply from. There's some things. I mean, this is from my own reading when I was trying to do stuff, but there's some actions, and usually it's with a listener, so that's why I'm confused as to why it isn't working. That basically cause it to refresh like the interface. If you get what I'm saying, that's why it is dynamic. I guess what gets called under the hood is like some scope.apply thing that I think I showed you like one time.
Okay.
So normally you don't have to use it on your own except for like certain instances, and I don't know, maybe this is, but I feel like.
But this was showing up a few minutes ago.
But I mean, not necessarily if it was showing up, but like if it's like the second it establishes that value, does it like.
So something like it's like cached funny, and the scope.apply fixes that?
Well, because certain things don't necessarily call. There are certain things that are supposed to, like every time something finishes for certain, like we'll call them functions, it's supposed to call scope.apply or whatever the method is. And that makes it like refresh and makes everything dynamic and, you know, basically refreshes the scope and stuff.
Okay, well, so that's interesting. I just hard-coded a value in there. That didn't make a difference.
Yeah, so that would tell me that it's not updating it, right? Because yeah, that's definitely the same. It's the same variable. You have I can't remember. You have the console.
It's open
inside that listener there.
Yeah, I had it inside.
And it was firing.
Yeah, it was firing and it was showing the data.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we'll put it back just for our own sanity. Data.val. So it'll print out user. I'm setting it to user now up here, so don't assume a false positive here.
It said there was a user controller.
That was from the next thing down because we were getting past it here. So if I call this users, yeah, so there's the console user. I'm allowed to set it here, so I'm setting it before the listener value. We know it's hitting here.
That's weird because I would think that inside that little listener, it should definitely
Update right away.
yeah, that's something that I'm pretty sure it's supposed to do.
Oh, I have a theory here. Although that would kind of break why I would have thought it used to work. Does this guy have his own scope? I bet you he has his own scope. So if I do this, $ old scope is equal to $ scope. That
Would be rough.scope.
No. And then I should be able to say old scope. Because this is actually something that pops up in Swift sometimes. Or actually, I'm sorry, not Swift, in Android sometimes. When you're trying to talk to the activity, you need to, the keyword this is not the this you think it is. It's an instance of an item listener, a click listener.
Well, old scope has the equal scope then. Oh, yeah.
Right here.
Yeah,
So I'm creating a new variable called old
semicolon,
scope. Oh, thank you. I'm creating a new variable called old scope, and I'm going to try to set them equal to whatever scope is equal to, which then allows me to reference old scope down here. Let's see if that makes a difference.
Would you have to set scope back equal to old scope then?
No, because if what I'm suspecting is the problem, if inside of this little world here we have a new variable called scope, that variable goes away as soon as that guy's done, and we're back to our.
Isn't, you notice how there's no period before it, so it's stored outside of whatever the scope is.
Assuming this is allowed. Okay. So now
Scope.
Now you gotta make that thing kind of break now, isn't it? Because it doesn't have.
But old
You
scope.
make it grab the what it's listening for roll.
Yeah, but the thing is with old scope, is that past the pointer to scope?
that's what I would expected it to have been.
Or to just copy all the
Okay, well, so we can further fake it this way then. Var roll is equal to, let's say undefined. And then in here, we can just say roll is equal to that. And then after this, we can say scope dot roll is equal to roll. It's still undefined. What's up with that? We know we're getting inside here because it printed. This line is printing. And it's printing the right value. And here, let's just make sure the value doesn't burn off or something. So I'll print the value twice. So we should see user twice in there. We do. All right, so it's not that reading the value makes it go away.
You, right after you change the value of the role,
You mean right here?
but that's not the scope variable.
Yeah, I set it down here.
That didn't work, right?
Correct.
Okay, right after that line where you change role.
But the user email is working, just as a point of reference.
Okay, yeah, I
So this is updating the correct scope, is what I'm saying down here.
Back in the listener, where it's just doing it in the listener, setting scope dot role to data dot val.
Oh, so you want me to? Okay.
So then line underneath that, do $scope dot $apply parentheses and then semicolon.
All right.
Shouldn't have to do that, and I would be surprised if it doesn't work. But it'd be interesting to see if it does. Yeah,
It did work.
why doesn't it work?
It did work.
It did? Okay. Yeah, it doesn't like it being called in the wrong time.
No, I think it's complaining about this is the old thing from before. Yeah, this is
Oh,
it worked. All right. Well, so now
why you have to do that?
So
but
it's just
yeah. So now why does it work? What is that? What is this?
I feel like the listener should already do that anyway, but maybe that's because that's why we were using Firebase arrays that one time instead of using the listeners. Because I know the Firebase arrays do that automatically. So
automatically.
yeah.
All right. JavaScript is turn based.
So is it because the listener, after the listener, it doesn't, I mean, it knows it found the data, but it doesn't update the data?
All right. So here, let's. I think this might just answer it for us. If you've written, and then we'll take a break. If you've written a non-trivial amount of code in AngularJS, you may have come across the scope.apply method. On the surface, it may seem just like a method you call to get your bindings to update, which it did. But why does it exist, and when do you need to use it? To really understand when to use apply, it's good to know exactly why we need to use it. So let's dive in. JavaScript is turn-based. Let's make this a little bigger. JavaScript code we write doesn't all run in one go. Instead, it executes in turns. Each of these turns runs uninterrupted from start to finish. And when a turn is running, nothing else happens in our browser. No other JavaScript code runs, and our web page interface is completely frozen. This is why poorly coded JavaScript can freeze a page. Instead, whenever there's a task that takes some amount of time, for instance, that thing with a callback, such as an AJAX request, waiting for a click event or setting a timeout, we set up a callback function and finish our current turn. Later, when the AJAX request completes, a click is detected and the timer completes. A new JavaScript turn is created and the callback run is to completion. All right, I think it already makes enough sense to me. This is the normal callback problem. The reason it works at the console and not at the web page is the console is not constantly active. The web page is a static thing. So we need to, so basically you're saying if you ever make a change to your scope inside of a callback, you need to call scope apply. To remind, it's almost like if you've done iOS development, telling a table view to update itself, to reload its data from the data source. So it shows up because now there's new data available. All right, so that makes sense to me. So let's see, what was the error message we got here, just to patch that up. Not a function. All right, so it's an index. We are getting right in. We don't need this UID thing anymore. I don't think that's going to be too handy for us. So let me just clear it out of here before I forget. That we also don't need that roll thing there. We don't need the log there. We'll do our thing and then tell the scope to refresh itself. Okay. We might as well do the email ahead of that refresh. Otherwise, it's refreshing naturally once and unnaturally the other time. Okay. And then back in index, if role is equal to user, then we're going with our controller called user controller, but we didn't import our user controller. That's this right here. Okay. And now we should be back in business. Auth data is not defined. Okay, that was the question we were wondering. So we need to re-grab those things. This is in our user controller. I mean, we don't actually need auth data anymore. Just I was just assuming we would still have access to it, but we didn't, which is oh, I know why we didn't. Because auth data was not part of the scope. All right, before I go any further, let me just do this. Scope auth data. Back here, we'll go ahead and just say scope.auth data is equal to auth data. That should expose it to the other controllers that are sharing the scope. Anything that's a var lives and dies with this, which makes perfect sense. So now in our user controller, auth data should actually be a thing. So let's see if that's the case. Ref is not defined because it was also a var. Yep, var ref. All right. Now the things are making some sense. So we can just throw this up top here if we want to have access to it. We might not need access to it. We definitely don't need the scope here. But at least that makes logic sense. Anytime we use var, that's a local variable to the opening and closing curly brace that guy's part of. It's not exposed. But things that we want to share across our controllers, we add to the global scope. And that scope is shared among our apps. Okay, so there's our ref, there's our auth data. We'll go ahead and get the service request, progress array. There's our submit button for creating new ones. Okay. And there's our stuff that doesn't look so hot, but it is there. Where's my text box? Is that on our old user HTML? Type text, ng model service name. Isn't that in the new one? So that's service name. Oh, there it is. Okay, so seems to be working, just looks like crap. All right, so let's take a, well, I guess let's take a 20-minute. So come back at 8:37, I guess. 8:35. Come back at 8:35, so we can dive back into the stuff. All right.